It's like you look at Martin, right? Or you look at Malcolm, or various people. Let's say Pedro Albizu Campos or whoever, and what gets championed is that they were killed by the forces that they were fighting against. So there's this it's a lose-lose situation. That's the way that it's portrayed. So then people have this fear of death under the hands of their oppressor, but they don't mind, let's say like a long self-medicated form of suicide. So it's I think it's really more an issue of, lack of confidence when it comes to that. The thing is that these problems have been here, before any individual, and chances are will be here after any individual, is gone. And I could only tell you, to learn to occupy your time with your talents. Figure out what your skills are. Figure out what your abilities are. Don't worry so much about what you can't do. Focus on what you can do. Focus on what you want to do, and learn to give yourself the confidence. Because when your self-esteem is rooted in something substantial within yourself, there's nothing that could ever touch that. There's nobody that could ever touch that. It's just when you have it as opposed to when you don't have it, you see the responses to situations much differently. You know, I mean, for example, when I was younger, there were periods, like hanging out in Dykeman Projects just in the staircase all night, just drinking and smoking, just wasting time. But I'm not discontent with going through that, because that was a part of the process. You gotta learn to respect the process of growth and development.
Well, Sean Bell was murdered a few months before I moved to New York. I heard horror stories about the relationship between the police department and Black and Hispanic community in New York. And I was also told that there was going to be an uproar, and I was surprised that there wasn't. Shocked that people are as desensitized about police brutality and so many other issues as we are. So I just wanted to do something. I mean, initially the intent was not that it would be what it turned out to be. I'm eternally grateful for what has happened with the film, but initially I just wanted to make something to bring awareness around, how these things affect the young Black boys, and to hear their voices about how they feel in reference to the numerous murders that have taken place, and not just the murders that have taken place, but also the fact that police officers can kill Black men in cold blood and nothing happens to them. So my hope was that if people heard children speak out about what they were feeling, that we would be a little less desensitized to these types of issues. I think that the media is a tool. It's a propaganda tool. So police brutality and the ways in which it's communicated in mainstream media, it's quite watered down, because it's a part of a system and a machine that is used to deceive large numbers of people at the exact same time. I think that there is just a global white superiority and Black inferiority reality that all people are affected by. So I think that even thinking that the police department is going to or can do something is incorrect. Young people have to be willing to be clear about the fact that where we are is their death. And if they're not willing to realize that they're behind enemy lines, regardless of whether or not older people realize it and are truthful and honest with them about it, we're going to continue to see more and more people dying. I think older people have to not lose their warrior spirit. You know, we get older, we get comfortable, we get disillusioned and discouraged. And I think that that's a problem. So I think that older people have to really be clear that even if we don't see changes in our lifetime, that what we're doing is absolutely necessary, and one day it will definitely create the change that we're working toward.
In Malcolm X grassroots movement, I guess I've played various roles. Currently, I'm on what's called the National Coordinating Committee of the Malcolm X grassroots movement. And right now I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm in the chapter there. And I'm on the coordinating committee of the local chapter. But most of the work that I've done in the Malcolm X grassroots movement has been in New York City, where I've, again, served in various roles, from being in the coordinating committee of the Malcolm X grassroots movement here in New York, serving on various committees, including People's Self-Defense Campaign, where we do the majority of our police misconduct work. I'm one of the people who started the actual cop watch that we do and helped start the Know Your Rights workshop that we do.
Okay.
My mother's experience in Charleston, South Carolina, growing up in the civil rights movement, the scars she carries from an encounter with the police when she was playing in a white-only playground and she was chased out and she was hit in her back with a nightstick, and I guess her relationship to not only her community, but also how her and other folks of her generation, and somewhat today even, how folks still hold white people and whiteness in a certain amount of esteem, made me started to think about our community and the conditions of our community and the lack of resources in our community. I wanted to give something specific or add something specific to the organizing work that I did. And I thought, you know, just going to rallies and organizing was helpful, but one of the things that seemed to be missing in terms of our direct community was access to legal knowledge and legal advice that could really help with movement building. And so I decided to go to law school as a very politicized person, which makes law school a little difficult because law school is meant to train you to think about yourself and the law in a certain way, and to not think about it as I currently do and did then, as a tool for the most part to keep people in a certain place, and as rationales to keep people from going outside of what these rationales give you, what this framework gives you in terms of challenging your conditions. I feel race plays the major factor in those shootings. I think people are targeted by the police department because of their race and because of their gender, actually. I think young men in particular, I think the police target a large swath of our community. But I think in terms of what the state does, particularly to young black men, the police are vital in terms of repressing, arresting, and convicting and sending people to prison. And I think race plays the biggest role. I think the way that society and police are trained to view young black men as threats, as the enemy, as perpetrators of crimes, that part of the training is that these are the people who need to be looked out for, and that people who need to be scared of. And I think the police come into our communities with that mentality. I think our community is not as well engaged in what our rights are as we need to be. And so I think the information that our community lacks is when the police approach you and they start asking you questions, most people don't know that they don't have to answer those questions. And when we do our Know Your Rights training, we try to tell people that even if we don't think it's the smartest idea to just stay silent on the street, what you should ask the cops when they stop you or when they ask you questions is if you are free to go. And if the cops say no, then you have to realize that they are investigating you at that point to potentially arrest you. And that you should not grant the police the right to search you, even if they do it anyway. Let them do it on their own. Don't grant them permission to search you, because if they do happen to find something, or if they want to make something up, then they can easily do that by saying you granted permission and this is what we found. inform people about what their rights are when they are stopped by the police in the street, what their rights are once they're arrested, and if they feel that they've been falsely stopped and falsely arrested, how do they proceed from there? How do they fight in terms of a criminal case? How do they sue the police if they feel that their rights have been violated? Reporting incidents to the Civilian Complaint Review Board, which is helpful in terms of gathering evidence. So we try to do, in terms of the Know Your Rights workshops, this whole from being stopped on the street to potentially being arrested, what are your rights in between all of that, and what you should look out for and remember, so that when you actually do get to speak to an attorney, you can tell that attorney.